Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Many Mistakes Ago podcast. So, this is going to be a kind of fun, lighthearted episode, kind of a get to know me type of episode. And I'm going to talk about my list of first. So, I'm going to do like first kiss, first this and that, whatever. And I'm going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. Some may have a backstory, some may not. But before we delve in, I built a shoe rack. So we're slowly getting this room together. I have a cube organizer coming. I think it's like a 9 cube organizer. So I'm going to put it there, and then I'm probably going to move the shoe rack on this wall and kind of I really just need to have a space for everything. And once this room has a space for everything, it'll feel so much better. So we're working on that. And we're also going to work on the rest of the apartment. And then I'll finally do an apartment tour vlog. I promise, eventually. My girlfriend also bought a cute little bench with cube organizer at the bottom of it. It just came in today, so she's going to have to build that. And that'll go in our, dining room area where all the dog stuff is. And then we'll have dog stuff in So, it'll be really cute. Sorry, I had to cut that off because Remy started barking at nothing. I'm also eating chili cheese fries, Pringles. You cannot tell me they don't taste like chili cheese fries, but also a little bit odd. Pringles, you are something else every time. Okay, but in all seriousness, let's get into today's episode. So, rating my first pet was a bunny named Benji. He was the softest bunny in the store. I remember, I think it was like my 7th birthday or something like that. I want to say I was in was I in 3rd or 4th grade? Because this was before my parents divorced, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, maybe I was in 2nd grade. Hey Siri, what grade are you in at 7 years old?
Sorry, I don't understand.
I bet Alexa would know that answer, but I don't have an Alexa in this room, so let's try it. Oh my god, what grade are you in at 7 years old? 2nd grade. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I figured, but my mind has just been crazy. Anyway, so yes, it was 2nd grade. I was 7 years old. That timeline matches up now that I think about it. And I had a friend at the time who also loved bunnies, and the bunny that I had this little patch on its back. So it was white, and then it had patches of brown and black fur, and there was a patch, and she said it looked like Mary Poppins, and I thought it was so funny. I don't know why, because I can't really picture if it did look like Mary Poppins, but I digress. It was cute. I miss Benji. We ended up having to sell him because I couldn't take care of him because I was honestly going through a lot. I wasn't consistent as a child. I had some mental health issues. I ended up getting diagnosed with diabetes in 5th grade. My parents divorced, and my dad wanted a dog. So, he ended up getting rid of the bunny. So, I was just what the hell? I ended up getting a bunny a couple of years later. Not a couple. It was probably, 10 years later. But I digress. I would say the experience overall was probably a 7 out of 10. I became allergic to bunnies. But honestly, they're incredibly smart. I I know that Benji's probably not alive anymore because the lifespan would just not match up, but I truly hope that Benji got a good life after me because, again, my parents got me this bunny and, like, expected me to take care of it, and, like, I don't want to say, like, I was too young to have that responsibility, but, like, I also was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 11 years old, so I kind of just had all of this responsibility thrown at me, and I was just like, whoa, okay, like, what about playing and, like, going to the pool and, like, hanging out with friends? Like, whatever happened to that? So I just feel like it was a lot of responsibility. For someone so young who, like, didn't really want responsibility, and it was just kind of, like, shoved upon her. It was a good way for them to try to, like, teach me responsibility. I just don't think I was ready for it. Anyway, speaking of diabetes, my first diagnosis. So I've seen a lot of mental health, like, therapists and everything, psychiatrists. And my first diagnosis was actually not in the mental health realm, oddly enough, because when my parents divorced, I was in 5th grade, and that, like, brought a lot of trauma on me because I was a little bit of a eavesdropper, if you will. And I knew why my parents were divorcing, which I'm not going to discuss on here because it's nobody's business. But essentially, like, I heard, like, why they were divorcing, and I was just like, that's a lot of trauma to, like, hold on to, like, secrets like that. But my first diagnosis was type 1 diabetes. And I have been a diabetic since 2009. So what, like 15 years? My blood sugar is 169. How funny. Odd. And I would probably give that honestly, a 3 out of 10, because when I was diagnosed with diabetes, like, of course it had to be me. It couldn't have been anyone else in the family. I was 11 years old. I had lost 15 pounds. I didn't understand what was going on or what was happening with me. It was definitely a scary experience, but thankfully the doctor and the APRN were amazing. To this day, probably my favorite practitioner for diabetes that I've seen. But I must say it brought on a lot of other diagnoses, and obviously, like, that plus everything else, like the hypothyroidism, the depression, the PTSD. But type 1 diabetes has to beat it because I feel like I low-key manifested it in, like, a roundabout way. Because I don't know who saw Nick Jonas on the television about his diabetes diagnosis. I want to say it was on, like, Nickelodeon or Disney Channel or something like that. And, like, we were all sobbing our hearts out. And I was over here, like, I could never, like, I hope I don't get diabetes. Like, that's such a scary thing. And, like, I really manifested those fears. And a year later, or maybe 2, I don't remember if that segment came out in, like, 2007 or 2008, but I was diagnosed January 26, 2009. So clearly the universe wanted to play a little jokey joke on me. But yeah, I would say 4 out of 10. Is that what I rated it, or 3 out of 10? Because even though it definitely is not something that I ever would have wanted, I do feel like I have a sense of purpose as a diabetic, and I feel like that is, I don't want to say it encompasses all of me, but I want to say that I feel like having a scary diagnosis like that and being able to share and, like, have an experience and talk about it and be open about it, I don't want to say that's my reason for living, because it's not, but, like, it definitely is a big part of me, and it's something that I'm willing to share and willing to talk about, the struggles of being a diabetic, what it's like to be a diabetic, because not everybody has that kind of I guess, person or whatever to look up to, because diabetes isn't necessarily genetic, I want to say, type 1 diabetes anyway, because nobody in my family has it. So, I had nobody to look up to or nobody to kind of talk about this with. So I felt very alone. So I definitely would say, yeah, it's kind of nice that I feel like I can talk about it and like be online about it and make people feel less alone in some way, shape, or form. Um, Another first, my first boyfriend. So, this is a joke. um, my first official boyfriend, I don't even want to count him, but I do because technically he asked me out and technically I said yes. And technically we were like acting like boyfriend and girlfriend, but we had never kissed. This was literally in like middle school. Guy's name was Alex, and the only reason he asked me out is because all of his friends had girlfriends and he felt like he like wanted or needed to have one, because all of his friends did. So he asked me out because like I was a part of like the girls friend group. And yeah, his friend Tyler ended up being my second boyfriend, the one who actually told me Alex, the story about Alex and why Alex asked me out. So that was very interesting because it was a time of my life that was just very, very a lot. Like, obviously, like, I came out years later. I don't know. It's just very weird to, like, look back on that time. Because, like, these are, like, these, like, I don't want to say emo, but like, like the Justin Bieber hair, kind of skater boy, like what most people would go after. And I feel like looking back, I'm like, did I even like these boys? Or was it just the fact that like my friends like these boys? So I was like, oh, I should like these boys too. Like, I don't know. In middle school, I feel like you should not be focusing on like liking someone or anything. Like, just dive into your books. Like, don't even bother because you have your entire life to chase after love and your entire life to like deal with all that bullshit, to be so frank about it. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. I would say 2 out of 10 because it did not last long, and obviously it was not for the right reasons or right intentions or anything like that. First kiss was Tyler. I would say 5 out of 10. I have mixed feelings about this. One, because this boy was like everything to me back then. And I do remember our first kiss was on the beach. But it wasn't just me and him. Like, it was me, him, my friend Victoria, and my mom and her boyfriend at the time. And they, like, went for, like, a walk on the beach. And we just, like, sat there on, like, a blanket. And then I don't remember how it came about. All I remember is Talking to the Moon by Bruno Mars ended up coming on, and that was like our first kiss. And I was just like, whoa. And I remember I started my period. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, this is just awful. But yeah, my mom would say I have really bad taste in men, which I agree because I don't even like them. I just cherry pick the ones that everybody else likes. So I was just like, no, this is not it. Not it at all. Um, Going off of love, going into my first girlfriend. A lot of people are going to, I don't want to say a lot of people because none of you guys know me, but a lot of people tend to not agree with long distance relationships being real relationships, but I will digress. My first girlfriend, the first girl that really just made me like know my sexuality, know that I liked girls. I was just like immediate yes. Her name is Maddie. I met her on Tumblr, and having a Tumblr girlfriend is just so freaking, like, it is just, like, of course, it's, like, top tier experience because, like, you don't really, it's just, like, a shared experience. I feel like a lot of girls or a lot of, like, women loving women tend to have. And even so, those that weren't out at the time having like secret girlfriends online, it felt very niche. But I must say, like, Maddie was the start to like this whole building block, and like I just did not realize my sexuality or anything, and it was just like the start of like this little seed that like grew into who I am today. um I really don't remember a lot of our relationship. A lot of our relationship was online, and all I really remember is like meeting through Tumblr. I remember she lived, I don't know if she lives there now. She lived somewhere in Canada. I feel awful because I feel like that time of my life I tended to block out a lot because I had been diagnosed with PTSD a couple like years later after the fact, but I didn't realize that I would like block out portions of my life to like forget certain bad memories. So I feel like I was dealing with a lot at that time, and it just sucks because I do know that like looking back, I know that she was a pivotal person in my life, and I wish I could remember more, but I don't. And yeah, I would have to say 7 out of 10 because it was a good experience, but it was very scary, and like I literally came out to my mom by like writing a note under her like writing a note and then like putting it under her pillow, and I was like, I think I like girls at like 13 years old. And I was just like, I knew who I was, and I kind of always feel like I knew who I was, but I just was so scared to like publicly be that, publicly be gay. Um so yeah. um Another first with females is my first female kiss. Um Her name is Adriana. Her and I met in high school, and I was like back and forth at this point because when I was like talking to Maddie, I came out to my mom. My mom kind of was just like, it's like a phase, like it'll go away. Like it's just a phase. So like it kind of was drilled into my head like not to be gay. Because not only that, but like my parents are divorced, right? My parents have two different religions. I won't get into too much of my mom because she's not like an active like church member, I guess is the best way to put it. Like she's not actively religious. So I know that she's like been open and accepting ever since like I came out to her again. But my father, however, I have no idea where he is in life, and I don't really want to know, but I do know that at this point in my life, he was trying to heal from like the breakup between him and my mom, and he went back to being a Jehovah's Witness. And if you know anything about that religion, being gay is just a big no no, huge sin. So, like, I would be dragged to these meetings, like my brother and we would just feel like anything and everything that we did was wrong. Um, so it was really hard to come to terms with because I'm like, trying to come to terms with my sexuality. I was like, am I bi? Am I gay? Am I pansexual? I'd kind of finally settled on pansexual. But I just felt like labeling myself felt so hard because I felt like I had to label myself. But truth is, sexuality is fluid. You don't have to label yourself if you don't want to. Like, I just feel like you can be a person who likes other people and like just call it that, like you don't have to label yourself necessarily, because I feel like you can put yourself into a box that way and it can be scary. But at the end of the day, like, long story short, it was just a weird time in my life, and I ended up, after Maddie kind of like going back into the closet, and Adriana had come along, and I told Adriana, like, her and I got pretty close as friends. I think she was maybe a year or so older than me. And, she was like, have you, like, ever kissed a girl? Like, are you sure that you like girls? Like, do you want to know what it's like? Kind of like trying to vibe off of, like, what I was feeling or thinking. And she just ended up kissing me. And I was just like, wow, like, okay, I do like women. And, like, the funniest part, the most effed up part, is even after that kiss, I still went to men, because why? I don't freaking know. I guess I just felt like I didn't want to like tear my family apart by like being gay and liking girls. So I was like, well, I've dated men. I've dated guys, like I can do it again. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I have feelings for men. Like maybe I'm bi, maybe I just like both, and maybe I can just get away with marrying a man someday. Like I genuinely was like, I can do this, kind of like hyping myself up to like be straight. Like, if you have to hype yourself up to like a gender, I'm sorry, but what the fuck? Like, I'm sitting here trying to hype myself up and be like, yeah, like dating men will be fine, And it's no bust or no shade to any men that I've ever went for. I either went for the man because of like the personality, or I went for the man because he seemed like a manly man, and like, I was trying to just throw myself at the mustache and beard. Or I went for you because you were very feminine in some aspect, and I was like, it's giving mask lesbian. Those were like the in-betweens, right? Those were like the guys that I went for. And it's just weird to me because I feel like ever since Maddie, I was trying to like chase a feeling that I couldn't like recreate or couldn't even describe. And I just feel like I would like these guys, and I'd be like, you're cool. Like, I guess I can like hang out with you and date you and kiss you and whatever. Like, but admittedly, there was definitely times where like I would imagine myself kissing somebody else, And it usually was not a man. Like, I don't know what I would picture, but it would be just any person that came to mind, and usually was a female. And there were a lot of telltale signs that I was gay, so it was just very interesting. I'm ranting on about being gay, but my first female kiss, I would give it a 7 out of 10 because I'm pretty sure it just defined everything for me. But also, I remember little parts of it because I feel like my memory kind of blocked out that time in my life. But I do kind of remember it. So I'm going to go with like a 7 out of 10 because I feel like later in life is when I really was like more comfortable in my sexuality. My first car was a Jeep Liberty. I would give that car a 0 out of 10. I wanted a Jeep Wrangler so bad, right? So bad. So bad. I kid you not, like, that was gonna be my dream car, and I ended up going car shopping with my mom. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say, I'm trying to think. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that there was another car that I had in mind. I don't know if it was a Jeep Liberty or Jeep Wrangler, but I know it was green. And I was going to go there, and it ended up getting sold. So I ended up going to somewhere else, seeing this like Jeep Liberty, and it seemed pretty cool in the pictures, but it had eyelashes. I was like, rip that shit off. But the motor blew on me like 3 months into me having that car. It literally like lemon law to a T. Like, I wish, but it was like a third party seller and it was like sold as is. They knew it was going. Shout out to Wallingford Auto Park for being the absolute worst, worst place to ever buy a car. They turned off the check engine light when I went to go like bring it in and be like, guys, you guys like sold me like a shit car. Like, you guys fully took advantage of the fact that like a female and her mom was coming to buy a car. Um, but yeah, I knew something was wrong with that car intuitively, but I still bought it because I didn't know what my intuition was trying to say. It was just almost like this sinking feeling of like, don't buy this car. But like, I didn't understand, at the time. I knew nothing about cars. So I'm not sitting here like this is like a telltale sign of like the motor's gonna go. You know what I mean? But yeah, I had that car for probably a total of 3 months, if that. But when I did go to bring the car in to have them check it, they turned off the check engine light because apparently that year of the Jeep Liberty, you can do that. And I just drove around thinking everything's fine, and then all of a sudden there's smoke coming out of my freaking car. And my motor blew, and I was SOL. So that was a fun experience. But yeah, 0 out of 10. Something even worse. I'm going to rate a 1 out of 10 just because I'm going to be nice. Losing my virginity. Interesting experience. The man who I lost my virginity to, his name is Alec. I've talked about him on this podcast before. That is the man who sexually assaulted me while I was sleeping. And I will say that straight to the camera, straight to the face, because you know what? You don't know him unless you know him. So what are you going to do about this video being up? No, seriously. I'm going to say it out loud because it's my story. And yeah, I would rate losing my virginity a 1 out of 10. And that's being generous because I was... that relationship was so unhealthy, so toxic. I feel like I was broken down as a person dating him. I feel like I lost my entire self-esteem while he was cheating on me with other girls. And the act of losing my virginity, I wish I would have lost it to a guy that I never even saw again. Like, I genuinely wish I lost my virginity in a one-night stand, because it would have been better to lose my virginity to that than a boy who thinks sexually assaulting and manipulating women is okay. But I digress. At least he doesn't hit women. That's the one line he doesn't have, which is sad. But I digress. I am not going to waste any more energy on that. My first job. Ooh, 5 out of 10. It was Kiwi Spoon in Wallingford. And a fun fact for everybody, but not for employers, is that was my first job indeed. However, I don't count it because I was there for about 2 weeks and then I tried to jump off of a cliff and kill myself. That was an interesting time of my life as well, but I feel like the job was fun, but it was also like a lot. Like, you don't realize how much working at a frozen yogurt shop entails until you're actually working there. But the owner was incredibly nice, from what I remember. And when I got out of the hospital, I wanted that job back, ironically. But truthfully, I shouldn't have even bothered. I ended up getting a different job, but, I just think, like, as a kid who is going through a lot and then, like, working and, like, trying to, like, grow up, I had a lot of mental health issues. I shouldn't have even been working. But that's no fault to anybody. Like, I genuinely was at the age where I should have a job. So it was, completely okay. It's just, I was not in the mental state for where I was at in my life. Um, the next one is my first time being drunk. I was still in high school and I got drunk around my dad's birthday. And for anybody who knows me personally, my dad is a very touchy subject, and that is because him and I are no longer on speaking terms. We haven't been for a very long time. I won't get into why because that's not the point of this episode. Um, but it was around the time of his birthday, so I was really struggling, and I had went over to a friend's house who was like across the street, and I straight up had a red Solo cup of vodka and just drank that straight. And my mom was just kind of like, where are you? Like, it's late, when are you coming home? And she ends up driving me, like, to come pick me up. She literally drives across the street to come pick me up and be like, you're drunk, you can't even walk in a straight line. So that hangover was my punishment. But I did have a deep and honest conversation with my mom, which was nice because genuinely my mom wasn't the type to like punish, because she knew I had a lot going on in my mind and in my head, and I was a strugglesome kid. So I think more than anything, she wanted me to be open with her, and that was one of the times in my life where I was able to open up to her, which was nice because it felt like the start to like our relationship. I mean, her and I always had a close relationship, but there were just certain things that I would hide from her, and this was something that like I tried to hide, but clearly like that's my mom. So it was nice to be able to discuss the true feelings of like how my dad made me feel, and how, this time of year is hard for me because it makes me have flashbacks and, stuff along those lines. So yeah, my first time being drunk, I would rate it a 6 out of 10 because I drank straight vodka. I could never do that again. The hangover was wicked. Um, I had a really bad headache. And I I don't really think alcohol is the answer to problems. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. My next first was my first accident. This was in my Subaru Legacy, which I no longer have. R.I.P. Sonic. Um, I, ooh, that was a time. So I had like mini accidents with the car, like, driving into like a guardrail or like something stupid. Like I remember I was like parallel parking and like scraped the guardrail. That was fun. That was stupid. I was trying to get out in between two cars, and I absolutely hate parallel parking. Never did that shit again. But like I literally just like drove up and did not expect someone to park behind me, and I was pissed off when I had to like get out in between two cars. So, yeah. But I had like little accidents here and there because I'm a stupid girl, and I just like I literally just I have no depth perception. I have nothing. Like I'm like probably one of the worst drivers ever. But I'm also like it's weird. Like I'm really bad at certain things, but like I can fly 80 miles an hour and safely get you to where you need to go. Like it's weird. But what I have noticed is I am most accident prone when I am alone. And I don't know if it's cuz my driving changes or what, but yeah. um and Anyway, my first accident, I was driving to school. I was in school to be a nurse, and I was coming to a stop, like at a stoplight, and some asshole in a truck decides to move over last second And mind you, I'm seeing it's a red light. I'm slowing down on the Berlin Turnpike. And if you know what the Berlin Turnpike is, it's where like everybody drives really, really fast because it's technically a highway, but it has lights at a certain point. Like you go more south and it turns into 15 and it's like just straight, like, highway, but not like a major highway. You know what I mean? If you lived in Connecticut, you know what I mean. So the turnpike has stoplights. So I'm like driving and I'm slowing down and I'm getting ready to stop, and, stop in front of the car in front of me. And this truck just out of nowhere at a red light, he's already stopped, decides to move over, no signal, nothing. And I end up hitting him because I'm like, what the hell? Like, you're not supposed to move over at a red light, first of all. Second of all, where the hell is your signal to show me that you're doing so? Third of all, like, it's a red light. Like, you should know that people are, like, stopping. But, like, that doesn't give you the right of way to move lanes. Like, if you need to move lanes over, you should be doing that when you're actively driving, not when, like, everyone's stopped and the people behind you are still coming and, like, going to a stop. Oh, that is so weird. I don't like that. But yeah, I digress. That was a time. It was not ruled my fault, even though I technically like rear-ended him. He moved over when he was not supposed to and gave me no warning or signal or anything. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, kind of just like, yeah, it was interesting. Okay, so another first. My first prom. This one is special to me because it was my only prom. And I must say, Ben was one of my old boyfriends, but he is also somebody that I have always considered a friend first. And y'all remember I was talking about Alec and I said I wouldn't. Him and I broke up. And then I asked Ben to fly up from Florida to go to prom with me. And then Alec and I ended up getting back together. But I had already asked Ben. Ben already bought his, like, flight. He was so excited to come up. And to be honest, I am so glad it worked out that way because I will always cherish, like, my friendship and what I had with Ben over some, like, punk who thinks sexually assaulting women is okay, and cheating on women is okay, and he's doing nothing wrong. Like, no. I truly got lucky, like, having, like, my prom not tarnished. I do remember he was, like, super salty about me going with Ben, and I do remember him being, like, super salty and ended up going with someone, like, that I was sort of, I guess, friends with at the time. Not really. It was like a friend of the friend at the time. I'm trying to think, like, at the time that this happened, I don't think we were friends. I think it was just a friend of a friend situation. But regardless, and he was just, like, complaining the whole night, and, like, I was just kind of over it because we were at 2 different proms, and I was just kind of over it because I was just like, I'm having a fun time with my friends and, like, my date. Like, even though he's just a friend, like, that is how I would have wanted memories to stay. So, like, if you're going to prom, if you have somebody that you genuinely love and you're in a relationship, like, so good for you. Cherish those memories. But if you are in an on-again, off-again relationship, go with your best friend. You will have no regrets. But yeah, that was fun. And then I think we, like, went home and, like, played Spyro and just, like, crashed and fell asleep. Like, it was genuinely a good night. I was not one to go to, like, an after party or, like, drink or anything. Like, I genuinely just had a fun time. Like, I literally think I still had my Jeep at the time. So I genuinely had fun, like, just going in my Jeep and, like, decorating it and whatever, and then, like, going to prom and having fun. And then my first international trip alone. I've only been on one international trip alone, and that is probably how it'll stay. But I went to Italy. I went to a couple of places in Italy and I got drunk and I got alcohol poisoning and COVID and ended up in the hospital. And it was very scary. And obviously, this was the time where like COVID was still really, really, really taken seriously. So I had to quarantine in the hotel. Not only that, but I needed a ride in a COVID ambulance. Like, I couldn't just get an Uber and like wear a mask and go home. Like, they had to like drive me in a COVID ambulance and like strap me up and like everything. And I was just like, okay, what the heck is going on? Yeah, definitely a scary experience. One that I will never live again. But yeah, vodka is a vice. Let's just put it that way. Because I was drinking vodka that night. And I think I genuinely just did not realize how much I was having. Because we ran out of mixers so quickly. And I was just like, I can like do it. It's fine. And I literally poured like this much vodka and like this much spritz. Like, it was bad. It was genuinely bad. Um, yeah, I just think I was insane for that. And I'm glad that I'm okay and here and alive. And I don't know how I am after all that I've been through, but I am. Um, and ironically, um, oh, if I were to rate my first prom and my only prom 10 out of 10 and the international travel to Italy, I would say 8 out of 10 because even though I got COVID, I got sent to the hospital, I stayed overnight, I was panicking, freaking out, nobody spoke English, like everything like that. I would honestly say it was one of the pivotal experiences in my life where genuinely I like completely just 180'd my life after that. So I'm really glad because I had struggled with drinking. So did my dad. So like I didn't want to end up like my dad. I was struggling emotionally. I was getting over a breakup. I was figuring out my sexuality. Um, like I was really just going through a lot. And I don't know. I just feel like even though there were some really just bad moments, I feel like I'm never going to get an experience like that again. So, yeah, 8 out of 10, I guess. My first self date, 10 out of 10. I went to Chili's. I got like whatever meal deal they had going on at the time. The server, okay, when I first came in, they were like, "Do you want like to sit at the bar? You want a booth?" And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna treat myself to a booth because I was like, I'm going on like a self date. Like this feels good." So like I got a booth. I felt no shame in it. Like taking up a booth. It wasn't seriously busy at the time, so it really didn't matter. But I was like, I am gonna go take my booth and like I ate my chips and queso and whatever else that I had. The server was new and I was like, that's okay. This is like my first like self date. Like we're like tackling first together because it was like I think her first shift alone or something like that. And genuinely it was a good experience. She ended up like giving me like all the chips to take home and it was cute. It was sweet. I genuinely needed to like go on this path and this journey of like self-love after coming back from Italy. So like that self-date felt really good because first of all, I'd never done anything really alone. Or like went on a date by myself. So it was really nice to just go do things on my own. Um yeah, 10 out of 10. The next one, my first WLW heartbreak. And I'm not naming Maddie in this because I don't genuinely remember how we split up or why or any of that. Like, I genuinely think our lives didn't align, but I could be wrong. I genuinely don't remember. So I'm going to count Anna as my first WLW heartbreak. And that was brutal because we had dragged it on and on. And it was like this toxic relationship that like I just could not get rid of and I like could not let go of. And I feel like we weren't good for each other, but we needed each other at the same time. And we just weren't good together. Like, I can't explain it other than that. And it hurt to, like, let her go. So I would, like, pull her back in and be like, no, like, I want to be with you. I just, like, can't because, like, we're not good together. And it was, like, this struggle because I did care for her and I did genuinely love her and care about her a lot. But I knew she wasn't good for me. So I was, like, really struggling to like let her go. And then I find out I'm gonna keep this like low key, but she had to come back into my life because she had to tell me something that was health related. So I like unblocked her and everything and had to deal with that and all of that entailed after like we stopped talking. And she was probably in my life for maybe a total of like a month or so. I tried genuinely to like be her friend, but I just think that it was not gonna work. And it sucks because I feel like I don't know how everybody else deals with their first like WOW heartbreak, but I know that I did not handle mine very well at all. And it was like I struggled to let go. And I ended up literally moving to another state and like just trying to like forget about all that Connecticut was and like all that she was and like just move and like start fresh because that's something I had wanted to do to begin with was to like move and start over and find who I was outside of Connecticut because A, Connecticut is expensive, and B, I felt like that place had so much trauma that I could not heal in the place that I was hurt. So I figured if I want to heal, I should find some place to do that and like start a new life. And I think the distance really did help me realize how self-reliant I needed to be. But yeah, I would say first WLW heartbreak is a 2 out of 10. To love someone genuinely, like, and like go through your first like WLW, like, not long distance relationship feels so good. And to love somebody and truly like after I had been chasing a certain feeling for so long to like find that again in somebody, it felt nice, but the heartbreak hurts worse than you could ever imagine. So yeah. Anyway, another first was my first major achievement. And I would say my first major achievement was opening and starting a business. And I don't want to be that cliche, but I sell crystals and candles and spiritual items and knickknacks and whatnot. And it felt really good to like make something my own and like open up an online like e-commerce type of business and just get involved in selling crystals. And I even for a while wrapped crystals and made like crystal jewelry. I need to get back into that because I miss the creative side of things. But like with me moving and everything and packing everything up and like spreading it all out and packing it again and spreading it out, like I've just been exhausted. But it feels really good to like have my inventory and like have my like crystals and everything. Hold on. I don't know if y'all can see some of my crystals there. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was a major achievement. Like I never expected me to like open a business. But I felt truly accomplished, and I still have it going to this day. And I don't know, it feels good to know that, like, I have something to work towards and something that I, like, can say that I've done. So I would say 9 out of 10 because it is a lot of work, it is a lot of effort, but it's totally worth it. And just amazing. Last experience that I'll get into because I feel like this episode has gotten long. My first strip club experience. I would say 5 out of 10. I went with my current girlfriend, and it was not the club that she wanted to go to. She was genuinely trying to look for a certain club in Austin, and we ended up at this random club. And I have to say, like, it was interesting. I was very nervous. It was kind of dead because I think it was like a Tuesday or something, like a random weekday, if I'm not mistaken, or it was early. And there weren't like a lot of clientele, and there was this one girl that came, and she like started talking to us and was like, my girlfriend was basically saying that she was just like being eager to like the minute that we got in there, but I was just like, okay, like, this is my first experience, so like I'm scared, and like I don't know what this life is like, you know? Like I don't really go out, let alone to a strip club, so it was just interesting. And then my girlfriend ended up getting a dance for me, and it was interesting. I don't know. I don't think strip clubs are exactly for me. Like, I feel like they would be fun with a group of friends, but like going as a couple, I don't know. Like, I had eyes on my girlfriend all night, and like, it was nice to share the experience with her, but I just felt kind of uncomfortable to a certain extent, and I just, it wasn't the vibe for me. I feel like in a different situation it would have been the vibe, but it was weird. I don't know how else to explain it. And I guess, like, I don't know. I was like, okay, like, I guess it's kind of cool that, like, they have, like, these routines and they're dancing and they're, like, skilled on the pole. Like, that's really cool. But yeah, I don't know. Not an experience for me, I would say. Um, but like mad respect to the girls that are like up there, and like you guys have mad skill. Um I'm just like a real like mess when it comes to social situations. So it was not anything that like I was expecting or like I was not prepared to go into. But nonetheless, definitely a time. And yeah, thanks for rating my first with me and listening to some of my firsts. I know that this was definitely a different type of episode, but I wanted to kind of make it fun and lighthearted, even though some of the topics weren't. Um, I think this was just one of those episodes where I wanted to kind of lay back, have fun, not really talk about something too serious, which next week is going to be another lighthearted episode, and then I think the week after that is going to be a little bit more serious. I'm just trying to switch it up, especially because Vlogmas is coming up. So I wanted to have some podcast ideas where like I wasn't doing so much research because yeah, Vlogmas is going to take up all my time, and I know that like comes next month, but yeah. It was fun. It was fun getting to like talk with you guys about some of my firsts. So, um I don't know if you have a first that you want to share, like comment below. I'm so intrigued. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week on Many Mistakes Ago podcast. Love you.